Good afternoon, James. Great seeing you. How you doing?
Good. Good to see you again, Gene.
Great. Um, I really wanted to bounce some ideas off of you today, and something that maybe you have your personal view on. Maybe we can share our thoughts and benefit our listeners and watchers. So I would like to ask you this straight up, and hopefully you can give me an honest answer and also unbiased to the extent that you can. So you and I both are both LeSS trainers. So of course, it is to our advantage, to our benefit to have full classes of students, people that are willing to learn, interact, and create a great learning environment for others as well. That being said, uh, do you feel that from attending your class, and let's just assume that you're doing the best possible job as a trainer, as a professional trainer and facilitator, and everyone who attends learns as much as they can from you as a trainer, as an instructor. Is this sufficient for someone to take your learning, to take your teaching, and pretty much run with it and do nothing else and succeed based on what they've learned in your class?
Not in the slightest. Even after 3 days, my hope is that they're a little better at knowing how to fish, that they're better grounded in some of the basics and, are able to reason about why LeSS is structured the way LeSS is structured and what are the underlying reasons that the various organizational design elements are arranged the way they are in order to optimize for adaptability. But as far as so many of the things that will come up day to day as they go about doing an agile adoption, that's the sort of thing that you and I have spent years and years and years doing. And there's a wealth of information that you and I have and other LeSS trainers have on this kind of thing that, sometimes we don't even know what we know. But if we're faced with a situation and a client explains it to us, it's not uncommon that, I may not know the whole answer, but I'll know maybe to ask the right questions, or I'll know a part of the answer. And then collaboratively with the client, we'll be able to work our way and find our way through the fog. But every situation's a little different. And if you're fortunate to have a LeSS trainer with you, coaching you as you go through your adoption, at least, I know in my case, at least it minimizes the chances that we repeat the mistakes that I have made myself in the past. Together, we'll get to make new mistakes instead of repeating old mistakes. So yes, my intention is that people learn a tremendous amount from the class, that it helps to congeal their understanding in a way that just reading may not. And, there's something about that interactivity over the 3 days and doing the system modeling and these things. But in no way are, I have a certificate on my head. Now I know what I'm doing. And I just think that's not true. I'm not sure I know what I'm doing half the time. I just benefit from lots of gray hair. So what do you think, Gene?
Well, I think you just failed the test of not so ethically appropriate trainer who probably makes everyone believe once you attend my training, you're out of the door, successful in able and to fly on your own and pass everything flying colors. Well, thank you at least being honest with me, because I personally don't believe. So I'm in agreement with you. I don't believe that exiting the most informative and the most revealing training course is sufficient for someone to just to come next Monday and click the button and expect immediate success. I think especially through LeSS training with the such a heavy focus, as you mentioned, on system modeling and understanding organizational dynamics, organizational design, people will come out with a much very different, much more inclusive insight and perception of reality. That's for sure. But that's still, for the most part, in theory, right? Practice comes like next Monday, but there's much more to it, right? So at least in my experience, even the most successful learners would really need a lot of operational safety to experiment. For example, they would definitely need air cover from their executive management that it's not support just in spirit and slogans, but actually in doing and making, which also expects senior executives to learn. It also expects a lot of organizational uniformity and cohesion in making changes. For example, leaving certain organizational structures outside of these changes, such as HR, budget and finance, site strategies, legal, is also not an option, or at least it's a bad option, because if you think you're going to do this well in phase 3 or 4 or 5, then what are you really going to do in phase 1? Adopt some agile program management tool. So I think there was much more than just attending the course. Of course, the journey of product definition, product discovery, organizational structuring, restructuring, and we can actually wrap this by support, right? With support of coaching and consulting is very critical here. So I think I agree with you. Training alone is a great primer for someone to get on their journey, but they actually need hand-holding, support, at least initially, from someone who understands what they're doing, and then lots of experiments, safe experiments. What are your thoughts? Yeah.
Well, I had a thought about the preparation for training. So you and I are both running a system-heavy modeling version of a LeSS practitioner course. And, I think in class, both of us, we strive to help people connect the dots between, this is the model and this is how LeSS does it and this is why. And if you understand how the various organizational design elements influence each other, then it probably becomes easier to connect the dots with how LeSS is doing it and why it's doing it. For example, you might understand why the LeSS rules are what the LeSS rules are as it pertains to what you're learning as you're doing the system modeling. But that said, people who have done a good bit of reading ahead of time, they walk into the class so much better prepared to be able to connect the dots with what they're doing in the abstract and the concrete. And I think that, if they're not prepared at all, they still will learn. But the people who are properly prepared have such a leg up on those who are not. And I think it's really important, if you are going to go to a LeSS class, and if you're going to spend, whether it's your own personal money or it's just the time that your company has gifted you to go spend, I think you owe it to yourself and to your teammates and to other people in the class to be as well prepared as possible so that you will gain as much from it as possible. If all you want is a stamp on your head, sure, you can sit there for 3 days, you'll get a stamp on your head. But that's not really, I think, what we're hoping that actually happens. So any thoughts there, Gene?
Yeah, I think I think I'm, my understanding of the situation is pretty consistent. I would probably say, well, this is where it becomes sticky, right? I sometimes hear this. Why do I need to read so much ahead of time? Why do I need to prep myself? Isn't that what you're for? I mean, you're going to teach me in the course. Well, I would like to say this. I'm going to say this very humbly. What we teach isn't necessarily an advanced course that is for special people. No, I think it's for anyone. However, this anyone is expected to come with some preconceived and already well internalized and adopted knowledge. You can't teach some of these things to someone who doesn't have enough background. So essentially, yes, you can, but you would have to stop and refill in the blanks. And imagine you have a class of 15, 20 people sitting in front of you. Guess what? You explain something to one person who chose not to read up before they showed up, and 19 other people are sitting there frustrated and disadvantaged, whispering, why are we answering these basic questions? So it is certainly a very good idea to come in prepared. In fact, I've seen people coming into class with a handout or with a recommended reading already mocked up, like with colored with markers and with a bunch of writing on them. Man, you've done some homework. You are going to be asking smart questions. That's exactly what's going to propel this training, this conversation. People that actually came prepared.
The best math professor I ever had in college assigned the homework before the lecture, and you were expected to have done the homework, struggled with it, and of course, it's math, so you bumped into problems. But then when you got to lecture, it was so much more meaningful. Not that this is calculus, but
yeah. Well, sometimes precision science is actually not a bad, example to use here, because you can learn Cal 2 or algebra or geometry without understanding basic arithmetics or Cal 1, right? So.
Okay. Did you have anything else, Gene, before we wrap?
No, I think we have it covered. I think we kind of, said what we wanted to say. We're not discouraging people from learning. In fact, it's kind of it would be a bit of an oxymoron for the two of us, like two trainers. We're certainly not discouraging people from learning from us or from other qualified trainers, but we do say the following: in order to take the full benefit from our teaching, please come somewhere prepared and somewhere educated already. That would make your experience in the course so much richer. But as you exit, also please keep in mind that just because you learned theory about parachute jumping, you should probably need to jump in a tandem first with an instructor and learn step by step. So you may need additional support, and you will need to learn how to crawl, how to walk before you start running. That's essentially what we're saying, right?
So again, Gene, it's always a pleasure, and thank you for listening, everyone, today. This content is available on the Adaptive Ecosystems. Is that right? Adaptive Ecosystems?
Yep, that's the
Adaptive Ecosystems YouTube channel, as well as the Agile Carpentry YouTube channel. It is also available in podcast form on Spotify, including video, as well as in other podcast forums without video in the Agile Carpentry channel. And then Gene and Les, both of us, routinely post the videos on our LinkedIn profiles as well. Thank you again for your time today, and I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful afternoon. Thank you.
Wonderful afternoon to everyone. Thank you, James. Always a pleasure. Thank you.